GoPro announced the Hero 4 session, and a lot of people have already talked about it, so I'm not going to get too into the weeds on the specs and why you should buy it or anything like that, because I probably think you shouldn't buy it. It seems like a bad deal to me, and it's not as powerful as the other Hero models. So the Hero 4 Black and Silver, and I don't know, they got maybe a regular Hero 4. GoPro has so many different models, it's hard to keep them straight. But the Session does 2.5K, which is cool at 30 frames a second, and it does 720 at 100 frames a second if you want kind of that slow motion, higher frame rate look. But it's $400, and the only thing it really adds is a smaller size. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought the GoPro was already small enough. Oh, and I guess I shouldn't say the GoPro. GoPro is the company. It's the Hero, specifically the Hero 4. And the Hero 4 Black and Silver, I thought were already pretty small, but the Hero 4 Session is even smaller. And this brings me to my biggest gripe with the Session is this freaking naming. Everyone calls these cameras GoPros, right? Like, oh, get the GoPro out and we'll, set up the shot. But GoPro's the company that makes the camera. And now they've got the Hero 4 Black, the Hero 4 Silver, the Hero 4, the Hero regular, the Hero 4 Session. Like, how are you supposed to keep these things straight? I don't know anyone who calls it a Hero, but I'm sure those people exist. But now you got the Hero 4 and now the Hero 4 Session, which I don't quite understand. But I really think GoPro needs to get their naming figured out. A lot of these companies, they try and make it confusing. It's either like a string of numbers that no one is ever going to remember, or they're only going to remember if the camera's really popular and it only has like 3 letters and numbers. Like just tell me that like the A6000, the A7000, the D3200, like all the freaking camera models you have to keep straight in your mind. I mean, you can do it. It's not impossible, but it could be a lot easier. That's for sure. I kind of like Canon's method, okay, we got the 5D, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, so you know which generation of the 5D it is. But then they start doing this weird stuff. Now they have the 5DS or the 5DR, I don't know, 5DS, whatever, 5DS, and then they're going to have the Mark 1. So you got all these SKUs and these different versions of the same freaking thing. But anyway, let's get back to the GoPro. The GoPro Hero 4 Session. Okay, so the Hero 4 Session is the same price as the Hero 4 Silver, which the Hero 4 Silver, it has a lot more going for it in terms of features, and the only downside to using the Silver is that it's a little bit bigger. Like I said, I don't know that anyone necessarily needs a smaller GoPro camera. They're already really freaking small. And it's only $100 less than the Black. So if you want the Session and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, this looks cool. It would only cost $100 to get GoPro's top of the line model. And from what people are saying online and some of the test footage is coming back, that the Session doesn't even, the stuff that it doesn't even do as well as those similar equivalents on the other cameras. So it's kind of unfortunate because I really like the GoPro cameras. I have a Hero 3 Plus Black Edition, if I'm even remembering that straight, because there's so, like I said, there's so many different models of these things. But yeah, I have the Hero 3 Plus Black, and I really like it. It's a great camera. It does some really cool stuff. I like that I can just kind of put it anywhere. But I've never had an issue with the size, it being too big. So I'm not really sure why they decided to go with the Session. Maybe I have kind of a feeling that every generation of the GoPro cameras, they've been able to advance the system, right? So they're adding either higher frame rates or bigger resolutions, and they kind of got in this tricky spot with the 3 and then the 3 Plus where there really weren't a lot of changes, and then they came with the 4, which did 4K, but they're probably looking at like, do we have enough to make a 4 Plus or even like a GoPro Hero 5? Like, do we have the technology to like cram into this tiny little shell that can actually get us to 5K or higher frame rates or whatever it is they need? And they're probably hitting that threshold, that wall where they can't do it every year, but they still got to keep money coming in. So they're like, well, let's just take what we have, shrink it down, put it in this other box and sell that. And maybe it's for some people, maybe it's for you. Maybe you like the smaller size, and that's the one thing you hated about the GoPro was that it was just too darn big. But for me, it's kind of like a sidestep where it's a neat idea. I like it, looks cool, but it just seems too expensive for what you're getting. If it was like $200, it might be a little bit more swallowable, but right now, $400, it seems pretty expensive for what you're getting.